welcome to our video on Dolliver Memorial State Park. This is absolutely my favorite state park in Iowa. It's a beautiful park. We start off here. This is a little walk along a trail to what are called the Caparis beds. This park is along the Des Moines River. It's also along Prairie Creek, which carved out these sandstone cliffs throughout the park, very similar to what happened in Ledges State Park. And these sandstone cliffs in certain parts of the creek expose what they called Caparis beds. And we're going to be walking along the trail here so you can get a sense of it. It's nice, it's wide, it's open. Most of the trails in the park are pretty well maintained. You won't get lost too easily. But this petrified wood is in the side of the hills, and that's what the Caparis beds are, these sandstone cliffs. And these are mostly petrified wood is created when calcite and sulfur filter through porous areas of basically felled dead trees. And you can see a few knobs there. Obviously the lower ones have been plucked out by people over the years, and that's something to remember with Dolliver as well. It's one of the oldest state parks in the Iowa system. It's the third oldest state park after only Ledges and Backbone. A lot of it was built up in the 1930s by the Civilian Conservation Corps and the Works Progress Administration. So Dolliver Memorial State Park along the Des Moines River. Closest town is going to be Fort Dodge. Here you can see one of the CCC buildings, a shelter that's kind of fallen apart. There is a great hiking trail throughout the park. It's about 5 to 6 miles total, and you can see some of the CCC stairs here as well. Great things to look for throughout the park are all of the CCC and Works Progress Administration construction. It's actually on the National Register of Historic Places for its Civilian Conservation Corps work, which again you can see throughout the park. Keep your eyes peeled for it. You'll see little culverts, you'll see the footbridges on the trails are all CCC. It was established in 1925. It was named after Jonathan P. Dolliver, who was a U.S. representative and senator from Iowa. There's another one of the CCC bridges, and I don't know about you, obviously, but I really love seeing all this stuff. Built in the 30s, it's been maintained about as well as you can, and it feels like a piece of history while you're out in the woods as well. Now, along the Caparis Bed Trail, you'll also have all these signs. This is a glacial erratic rock that this sign wanted to point out, along with some of the wildlife. It's sort of designed for children, I guess I would say, but you'll get a very good sense of it too. And here you go, we're walking across one of the bridges. The bridge has been there so long it's been overgrown. But the trails are very nice. The trail out by the Caparis beds loops around back to kind of the main parking area, the main picnic area that we saw in that first picture. And that trail is the one that has all the signs. You'll have wildlife, what kind of plants you'll see. And here's more walking. Again, this is one of my favorite parks to go on a hike in. It's a good 5 to 6 mile hike, up to 7 miles if you include the bluffs by the Des Moines River. I typically don't. We'll go on the Caparis Bed Trail, which becomes the nature trail through the woods, and then we'll take this little left turn through the woods here. You get a little bit close to some farmland too, which takes you out of it a little bit. Along the trail you see all sorts of great stuff. There's some mushrooms that we saw while we were out there. Be careful if you're going to pick mushrooms. Make sure you know what you're doing. Not the best idea if you don't know what's poisonous and what isn't. Now there are also some Native American burial mounds throughout the park. You probably won't see many of them. Some of them are on top of the cliff, somewhat close to the trail. I generally don't go on that part of the trail very often, just because it's not as interesting. The CCC bridges and such are all on this side of the trail. And you see they have been maintaining them and updating them, so they aren't going to fall apart on you. The Native American mounds rather, I don't know if I've ever even seen one in the park. They're not near the trail. You're not going to disturb any sacred sites. What you are going to see are a lot of forests and ravines like this, though. And the park has been here again a very long time. It was established in 1925. This is an old hunting sign that the tree is reclaiming because nature often wins. Now, this is the CCC Lodge. It's about midway through the park. A great old building built again between 1933 and 1935 by the Civilian Conservation Corps. One of the great programs to come out of the Great Depression. One of the few good things. There's one of the culverts built by the CCC for water to go underneath the park road. Still there, still being well maintained. Here's the entrance to one of the hiking trails near the parking area. And now we're going to get to Boneyard Hollow, which is one of the cooler parts of the park. It's kind of a sandstone ravine carved out, almost a horseshoe shape, 3 sides. And you can walk back into the ravine. You can get pretty far back there depending on the season. There's a stream that flows through there. And you can see the sandstone cliffs that have been carved out. The local legend is that the area was a buffalo jump. That's why it's called Boneyard Hollow. When European settlers first arrived, there were loads of bison bones at the base of these cliffs. And the theory was that Native American tribes would round up buffalo, run them off the cliff edges, and have them jump down where they either died in the jump or broke their legs and were easy kills at that point. So you could have food and clothes and everything else that were made out of bison. And here we are walking along. You can hopefully get a sense of the scale of the cliffs. You feel very small back there sometimes, which I quite like. And another thing to keep an eye out while you're back in Boneyard Hollow is for all of the graffiti carved into the cliffs. People have been graffitiing cliffs for a very long time. I know when I was in Mammoth Cave National Park, you can see cave carvings from the 1830s, 1840s, 1850s. Here, the oldest one I have been able to find is 1894, and you'll see some of the graffiti there. Some of it's newer. I mean, a lot of these cliffs are still pretty accessible. So, don't go carving your name into it. It is a crime. Here we go. Here's one of the ones from 1898, I believe. One of the older ones I've seen. So, as far as recreation goes, there's a boat ramp. It is along the Des Moines River. You'll see a lot of people out there fishing. There are these nice little picnic areas and bench areas along the river. You can get out in the river, mostly on boats, mostly fishing. Part of the trail does run along the river, which is a nice way to walk back. Basically, what I like to do is park near the main kind of picnic area where one of the main maintenance buildings is, and then walk up the trail through the woods up to Boneyard Hollow. Then you kind of come out Boneyard Hollow. You're along the Des Moines River, walk back on this river trail. And you'll end up walking past the last bit of sandstone cliffs, which are right here. As you can see, this has got the old road that the water runs over, like in Ledges State Park. They have built a bridge over the river, so you don't have to drive through the stream anymore. But this is all very reminiscent of Ledges. It's a very similar geologic creation with this creek. Prairie Creek is the name of the creek. They carved out these big sandstone cliffs, just like in Ledges. There's a little bit less picnic area. It's also going to be less crowded. It's a little bit farther away. Fort Dodge is much farther away from Des Moines than Ames and Mason City, around where Ledges is. But this part of the park is just as pretty. The picnic area is basically right the opposite of all these ledges that we're looking at here. And there you see some more of the CCC construction, an old dam that was built to kind of help control the creek. The creek's not very big anymore. There's the picnic area. And that is going to be most of the park. It is absolutely my favorite park. It's a great place to spend a day. There's the Dolliver Memorial plaque, which you have to go visit when you're there. Again, named after Jonathan P. Dolliver. So, to sum up, great park, great history with all of the CCC buildings, like this old entrance station. Highly recommend the park. Highly recommend you get out there for the park. You can see a whole ton of wildlife. I've seen deer there almost every time. Definite A park, one of the best in Iowa. Would strongly recommend.